you're 12-2 last year. When you lost to a good team. Yeah, a hell of a coach and a good team.
Yeah.
I do think, and I've said this, I think Ohio State and you are equipped to really control this conference for the next several years going forward. You have quarterback play, you got the coach, you got the infrastructure.
The Oregon Ducks may have the most loaded roster in all of college football, but all the world pays attention to is the departure of Bo Nix after an amazing 2023 season. In this video, I'm going to be talking everything Oregon football, what next inline players really could do some big things this season, and just what the overall outlook for the 2024 season is. But before I begin, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. Alright, so the college football world really saw a big change this offseason with the addition of the 12-team playoff. This really changes the whole dynamic of the season, and I think the way players and teams approach situations is going to be so much different. If a player is dealing with a smaller injury, they might sit out. If a team is down in a big game, they might approach it differently since it isn't exactly a do or die situation. And really, there was just so much less pressure on the regular season, which can be seen as both a really good and really bad thing. To me, I don't think too much changes. The tradition and rivalries of the sport are just too ingrained into many teams. So like, for example, the Ohio State vs. Michigan game is never going to be anything less because of the new playoff format. Anyways, for Oregon, the reason I'm talking about all this is because they are moving to the Big Ten, and they now have a pretty tough schedule. And I love that it's not one loss and you're pretty much done, because especially earlier in the season, there's always a few teams that start off slow and don't heat up until the end of the season, and it ends up costing them. So Dan Lanning really reloaded this roster after losing Bo Nix to the NFL draft, and according to many, overall up and down the roster, this is one of, if not the best team in all of college football. So Oregon's hype has not dropped off at all, and it's going to be so interesting to see if they can compete for a Big Ten championship, which is still just so weird to say. But let's start off talking about the players the Oregon Ducks did lose. So Bo Nix, of course, was taken 12th overall by the Denver Broncos. He was special last season, and put together a season nobody is going to forget anytime soon. Running back Bucky Irving, a really solid back that was good out of the backfield in both running and receiving with around 7 yards per carry, was taken by Tampa Bay. Wide receiver Troy Franklin has gone to the next level. He was a big time receiver for them last year, and that role is going to be filled by a guy who I'm going to talk about in a bit. Junior Angelo and Jackson Powers Johnson are both gone. Then on the defensive side of the ball, Brandon Dools and Keon Ware-Hudson are going to be gone. Linebacker Maze Funa is also gone, who was a tackle monster and beast for this defense. And they lost a lot in the secondary as well, but they addressed it in the transfer portal. I think a lot of the people that came back because they are completely bought into what Dan Lanning is doing. Oregon brought in quarterback Dylan Gabriel, who last year was the favorite to win the Heisman for some points of the season. He really needs to make sure that he is continuing to try to be a big-time player, even at times when it seems hard to be. His criticism is that against good teams he falls off, but last season at Oklahoma, he seemed to rise to the occasion a lot more, but he was still inconsistent at times, like that game against Kansas. And Will Stein is going to do his best to try to get that consistency out of him all season long. He's going to be throwing the ball to guys like Tez Johnson and Shoshone Holden, but the number one receiver for this team is not going to be Tez Johnson. To me, it's going to be Evan Stewart. Though he didn't produce as much his sophomore year at Texas A&M, partly due to a lack of being able to stay on the field, he has monster talent, and his ceiling is as high as anyone in the game. So the question is, will he be able to live up to the hype? And we will just have to wait and see. At running back, I think this team is going to be fine as well. You get Jordan James back, you get tight end Terrence Ferguson and Herbert back. Oregon is going to be very good on offense, and they also brought in some more offensive line guys in the portal. Really, the biggest thing is going to be replacing Jackson Powers Johnson at the center position. The defensive side of the ball they did address with the transfer portal a little bit. They got Jamari Caldwell, and they brought in Jordan Birch, who came in from South Carolina. They're also going to have linebacker Jeffrey Bassa back. They may have to answer some questions about the depth at the position, but I think they are going to end up just fine. I talked about the concern of the secondary being the most dangerous thing for Oregon. They do have safety Johnson coming back, but outside of that, there are not too many players returning. So it's going to be a new group that has to prove themselves. Out of the transfer portal, Brandon Johnson is a freak Swiss Army knife player who really is the freak that they got out of the portal this year. So now moving on, I want to talk about and predict the schedule this year. Starting off the season at Idaho, that is an easy first win. Should be a blowout. Game 2, they play Boise State. That is also an easy win. On September 14th, they play Oregon State. As much as I would love for them to still be relevant, they just aren't, and with the conference dissolving, I don't expect this to be much of a fight. Then you get another win at UCLA, but this is a game they could overlook with Michigan State and Ohio State coming up. I think Michigan State is a W, and don't take any offense to this, and don't even take me serious because I'm an Ohio State fan, but I just feel like this is OSU's year after hitting the portal super hard and just absolutely stacking the roster. But if Oregon does win this game, which they very well could, Ryan Day will be on the hot seat even more than he already is. So now with a 5-1 record, they take on Purdue, but I think they escape the spoiler makers to get a huge bounce back win. Then at Illinois, that is a pretty easy win. They never have much of an offense. And then on November 2nd, a circled game on the calendar comes up at Michigan. And here, I'm trusting Oregon's talent to get the win. And again, I know I'm an Ohio State fan, but logically, this season with Jim Harbaugh and McCarthy gone, if I had to pick between Ohio State or Michigan, I think Oregon has the better chance to win at Michigan. So that's what I'm going with. But I'm sure almost everyone would be just fine with winning one out of the two. But obviously, you would want both. So moving on after the big win, they play Maryland, a team that has struggled in the Big Ten as of late. So I think this is a pretty easy win, but then they have to go to play Wisconsin. If I would have picked Oregon to win at both Ohio State and Michigan, I would have had them losing this game. But with the loss already out of the way, I just don't see it happening. But then to finish the season, they play Washington, who is their new arch rival. This is the biggest game of the season by far, and I really just think this is Oregon's year, and they will have last year in the back of their heads, so I think Oregon gets a miraculous late game win to finish their first year in the Big Ten with an 11-1 record. So assuming nothing weird happens, I have Oregon in the Big Ten championship. I can't really predict who wins because I don't know who they would face, but either way, they will be in the college football playoff, ready to make some noise. Let me know in the comments below what things in this video you agreed with and what you disagreed with, because all my takes are mainly just opinions, and I'm human, and I'm not always right on everything. That's all I have to say for this video. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point, and if you enjoyed and haven't yet, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe, because your support truly does mean the world. Also, let me know what you would like to see next, and until then, I will see you all later.